Let us turn now to item 12 on the agenda. This is a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance for pit bull and pit bull crossbreed dogs. This recommendation comes from the Legislative Policy Committee, which gave further consideration to the regulation of animals that sometimes are dangerous, and the proposal is that instead of the original suggestion that the Council considered recently covering all dogs of all breeds, that an ordinance be considered for pit bull and pit bull crossbreed dogs. We've satisfied ourselves, I think, that this is a legal approach. It's one that was taken recently by the county of Riverside, and they were the people there were kind enough to share their thinking and their research, their understanding of the legal context of this regulation with us. So with the benefit of that, we turn to Siobhan Foster for this presentation as to where we are with this recommendation tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Very briefly, in terms of background, as the Mayor indicated, in July, the City Council directed the City Attorney to draft a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance for all dogs and cats as a means to reduce the population of unwanted or stray animals. This returned to the City Council for consideration in October, and the Council at that time postponed the action for 6 months or until the Humane Society completes its initial round of dog license canvassing within the city. At that point in time, the Council suggested that the legislative policy consider advocating for state legislation to allow dog breed-specific regulations within the city of Pasadena. On October 23rd, the Public Works Department made a presentation to the committee on 3 facets. The first pertained to state law relative to dog breed-specific legislation. The second component was possible legislative attempts at the state level to change the preemption on dog breed ban ordinances that have been in place since September of 2005, and then to look at available options to address specific dog breeds, and in particular ordinances that require owners of identified breeds to spay and neuter their animals or purchase permits allowing the dogs to maintain their reproductive capabilities. At that point in time, we learned that ordinances mandating spay and neuter of identified breeds must be consistent with Senate Bill 861, which was enacted in 2005 and later codified as part of the California Health and Safety Code. And in particular, the relevant section states that uncontrolled and irresponsible breeding of animals contributes to pet overpopulation, inhumane treatment of animals, mass euthanasia at local shelters. This irresponsible breeding also contributes to the production of defective animals that present public safety risk. We looked specifically at the Riverside County ordinance that was adopted in early October, as the Mayor mentioned, and this ordinance requires the mandatory spay-neutering of pit bull breed dogs over at the age of 4 months, with limited exceptions, which include pit bulls that are licensed and owned by registered breeders, used by public law enforcement agencies, used as assistance dogs, and when a veterinarian certifies the animals as having a health reason for not being spayed or neutered. The recommendation before the City Council tonight is to direct the City Attorney to draft a similar ordinance to Riverside County and return within 60 days mandating spay and neuter of pit bull and pit bull crossbreed dogs, excluding those meeting exclusion criteria. We also at that same meeting talked about drafting a letter for the mayor to send to state legislators advocating for the repeal of preemption on dog breed bans that have been in place since 2005, as this is a matter of local control. That's the presentation I have this evening, available for questions, and we also have the Humane Society here tonight.
Gordon?
We have one speaker.
Mayor, I'm prepared to move the staff recommendation. I think this is the extent of how far we can go, but we're confident that this would survive any challenge, and it addresses to some extent the threat that we're concerned about.
Jackie?
I'm sorry, Siobhan, can you remind me, didn't we have a mandatory spay and neuter for all dogs, not just pit bulls?
Yes, that
Or
came
was that
before the
considered at one
council
point?
in October, and the council tabled that for 6 months, or until the Humane Society finishes its initial round of canvassing within Pasadena. So that was put on hold.
Oh, okay, thanks.
We welcome your comment.
Humane Society, we had some concerns about this ordinance. Number one, if one of the concerns that the city has is about euthanasia, this will not solve the problem. A mandatory spay and neuter of all dogs and cats over a certain age remains our recommendation. Specifying one breed over others may solve a small problem for a short period of time, but then we're just going to be right back here with a different breed in a few years. So that was something that, as a Humane Society, we wanted to respond to this. The other is we disagree with the choice to rescind, the request to rescind breed-specific legislation. The ban on breed-specific legislation, Pasadena Humane Society supports the ban on laws for specific breeds, recognizing that, again, animals do tend to follow trends, and a breed isn't necessarily its activity. It is smarter to have bans on effective vicious dog bans and effective laws that support the work of the Humane Society to make sure that the community is safe, not necessarily going after one breed today and then another breed another day. So those were a couple of comments we had in regards to this ordinance. Another concern that we have at the Humane Society is the identification of a pit bull. Who is going to come up with a definition of what a pit bull is, who is going to define that, and who at the end of the day is going to tell the people that their dog is a pit bull. So what process is that going to go through? Who is responsible? Will the city be responsible for that? Will the Humane Society be responsible for that? And what support, if it is the Humane Society, that is outside of our terms of the contract? And so what support would the Humane Society get, and what backing would we get if we make a designation that a resident disagrees with? So those are some of the concerns that we have with that. Again, I would prefer if we could wait the 6 months to take a look at mandatory spay and neuter of all dogs and cats. It doesn't have to be 4 months. We can move that to a later age, maybe 6 months. And we think that that would be a more progressive ordinance and something that you would get the people's support behind, in recognition that the last time we were here, we had a lot of objections. I would like to note that all of the objections were from outside of the city of Pasadena. There were no residents here making objections. So,
Mr. Tornik?
So on the issue of the identification, the question you raised about who will determine what the breed is, and I mean, what I'd ask staff, it was my assumption that they would. So if they're asking that question, then what's the answer to that?
That is correct. It would be the Humane Society. In looking at the Riverside County ordinance, though, they have a pretty good definition developed for pit bull and pit bull type dogs that they use, and I would work with the Humane Society to see if that definition would work for their use as well.
yeah.
So
There are 3 types of dogs that are mentioned in that. It's the American Staffordshire Terrier, the American Pit Bull Terrier, and the Staffordshire Terrier. So any dogs that have part breed of any of those 3 would be considered a pit bull. So again, there are a lot of dogs that appear to some people as a pit bull, but are not those three breeds.
So having said what you just said, it sounds like you could perform that task. But I mean, not you personally. The society could perform that task.
We could perform the task. It would be a difficult task to perform, and then if we come up with something that the owner disagrees with, it's the cost of the owner to prove that we are wrong. I think that this is going to cost us a lot of money to be able to go through this process of every dog. You know, are you a pit bull? Are you not a pit bull? And then they go off, they do the DNA tests, and the accuracy of those are debatable.
So does that mean we're depending on the owners to come bring their dog into the Humane Society?
Yes.
In essence?
Yes.
Unless they were found through the canvas or something?
It's a regulation that would be virtually impossible for us to enforce unless they came through our doors.
And you made reference to sort of one breed, then another breed. I mean, in looking at the background material, which is a little bit light, in terms of the dog bite fatality that you provided to us, that graph, the Rottweilers actually were, but the number is so small, but the Rottweilers were, it would seem, a more dangerous breed than the pit bulls in terms of the, so would you go through that whole discussion? Presumably you did.
In terms of the statistics, that's correct, but in talking with experts, the pit bull tends to bite more than once, whereas most other breeds only bite once, so they are a bigger threat in terms of the way they
Damage they
yeah.
did.
Well, it's not just that. It's the testimony we heard at Public Safety was, even though pit bull breeds are 4 to 6% of total dogs, they account for over half the fatalities. And that's really what stimulated this whole discussion, was how, you know, every month or two you read about a pit bull killing a toddler or a senior. I
And
want that to happen in Pasadena.
I would note that the only fatality that we have responded to, a dog bite fatality that the Pasadena Humane Society has responded to, was in Glendale, and it was not a pit bull.
Right, and we want to act before you respond to a pit bull fatality
Yeah.
here, just like has
It was a
happened in.
Rottweiler.
Why are you interrupting?
I'm sorry.
We want to stop it before it happens here, like it's happened, what was the testimony, 88 times? In the past 10 years, a pit bull has killed someone. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Further comments or questions? Mr. Masuda?
Well, you remember the recent story about the pit bull that at Victory Park bit that other dog and then bit the owner, and that owner had his daughters with him as well. Mm-hmm. And then, Siobhan, well, through me, you encouraged to have 4 more signs put up at the park. Mm-hmm. Mr. Madison, I support your motion. Thank you.
Is there a second on that motion? Thank you. We do have a speaker card, thank you, Mark, from Mike Cornwell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I monitored the council on October 7th, I think it was, when there was considerable discussion on neutering all cats and dogs in the city of Pasadena. I was frankly disappointed that was not successful, but I'm pleased that you've agreed to consider it in 6 months when the Humane Society concludes their licensing. But in the matter of pit bulls, they are a very dangerous breed. You've had evidence, testimony to that. Neutering them does sometimes improve their disposition. And I rely on my daughter, who's had them in the past. She usually has 3 or 4 dogs. She lives in Sherman Oaks. She spends a lot of time at the Humane Society in Los Angeles, Van Nuys, as a volunteer. She says the predominant dogs they have, as as you will read here in Pasadena, I believe, are pit bulls and chihuahuas. I'm not sure why they have that unusual mix, but I would urge you to go along with this recommendation of the staff for the pit bulls. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second in support of the staff recommendation, which includes not only a direction to the city attorney to prepare an ordinance in accordance with the terms of the recommendation, but also for me as mayor to submit letters to state legislators on behalf of the city in regard to repealing the preemption of dog breed ban ordinances that have been in place since 2005. Becky?
I won't be able to support this recommendation tonight. I do think that we should move forward with the all breeds for dogs and cats, mandatory spay and neuter. I don't think we should be putting the Humane Society in the position of determining for dog owners what's a pit bull and what's not, although I do believe that, yes, it is possible that a pit bull or a pit bull mix has the ability to be able to attack, a resident in a park or anything. I think that opportunity is equally there for other dogs. I've never been attacked by a pit bull. I have been attacked by other dogs that were not pit bulls. And I'm certainly no expert on, animal aggression or anything like that, but I think that all dogs probably in some respects have some capacity to attack. I don't know if that's genetic or not, but I won't be able to support this recommendation tonight. But in the future, coming months, I do look forward to us considering the all-breed mandatory spay-neuter.
Other comments? Are there objections to the motion other than Councilmember Robinson's? There being none, except for Councilmember Robinson's, the motion carries.